What happened? Was this a coincidence that two novels came simultaneously about the group? It was just meanness. He knew that I wrote John and Denny's book to in Cass's estate. To write book, I wanted no one to be upset. After 50 years, the story of mamas and papas refused torpose in history. Their voices defined a period, but privately, it was really dark, complicated. Michelle Phillips, Theban's bright star, was central of everything. Torn between love and chained to a husband who betrays, restricted and secretive, threatened to destroy everything they built. Now, decades later, stillness, she finally explained band-destroying scandals. The birth-off sound. Well before streaming and a band gained viral fame. Harmonies can stop you. A band with tunes if you were in California, sunshine listening from a wet New York apartment. York. Mamas and papas didn't create music. They made noise that defined an era. For Michelle Phillips, the launch pad converted a California girl into virtually famous overnight. Yet, as their rise was stunning, the story behind the melodies was confusing. Ego, envy, and scandals would separate everything finally. The group started in NYC in 1965. The lineup was John Phillips, Canadian singer Denny, and wife Michelle Dougherty, and powerful vocalist Cass Elliot. Each brought something different. John brought precision arrangements. Michelle's lovely voice, a rich tenor Denny, and a soaring Cass contralto. They made effortless harmonic mix, although actually came from uneasy ambition and months of effort. Their roots were in folk-off Greenwich Village, where John chopped his teeth in Journeyman. Denny Cass sang in a brief ensemble called Mugwumps. Folk revival was waning, and the British invasion altered the rules pop music. John Phillips boasted himself on structure and precision now needed to withstand a new musical landscape. Solution arrived when Hettried, blending folk narrative with luscious pop voice harmonies tight. Just one major hurdle almost altered everything. History. Cass Elliott's status band. John was infamously sound and picture control, avoided bringing her in. He claimed her voice was out of place and discarded outright due to weight. However, Cass persisted. According to her, a bizarre accident in Virgin Islands, where the group had going to practice, expanded her voice range and showed John she struck notes he said she couldn't point one time. Cass opened her mouth and no room for her voice denied her, and she became the heart of sound. Virgin Islands' crucial period. Four of them lived and practiced together harmonies in the Caribbean heat. When money was tight, tempers flared, but from that strange place came their defining songs. When they returned to America, auditioned for Lou Adler at Dun Hill Records. Makeover was instant. Their earliest recordings captured a lovely, fresh vibe. Bittersweet optimism seemed to belong to California. But their significant breakthrough with publication of California Dreaming, a song written by John and Michelle in freezing winter in NYC, hit the radio and exploded in 1965. That happened suddenly. Desire for warmth and escape. The mamas and papas were everywhere. Success was astounding. Within a few years, they sold almost 40 million records globally, earned 6 Billboard Top 10 hits, Hot 100. Beyond the numbers, their influence was cultural. They helped define the genre later critics termed sunshine pop, bright but slightly sad sound that molded late 1960s soundtrack. They became the era's top stars. Stages from TV variety programs to Monterey Pop Festival, where set put them at the center counterculture. For Michelle, who was taken from relative anonymity as John's young wife, creative collaborator, stardom was strange. She changed almost suddenly. California girl liked folk clubs, Toa fashion, and sound icon pictured in fringed coats and flowing dresses. Her face as familiar as the song's every radio blasting. The spotlight loved her, but the band members' pressure was rising. While the accolades and sales told one story, actual drama was occurring within its own group. There were romances, power battles, and betrayals, pandemonium that no harmony could calm over. Just like that, the dream behind the parents started to fracture. Cracks and creativity tension. Mama's magic and Papa's foundation was harmony. But off stage, harmony was everything they could never keep. At the central figure was John Phillips, that undisputed leader. He wrote most, organized every song part, controlled how things should be sound. For John, control wasn't negotiable. His belief was that without under his leadership, the gang fell apart. However, that grip swiftly began to limit everyone's freedom around him. Cassie Elliott, with powerful voice, desired more carefully merge into John's built arrangements. She wanted a lone spotlight, and crowds loved her. John opposed the idea of letting Cass overshadow her own, worried it would disturb the group balance and damage his authority. Cass, who fought for years to be taken serious about her weight and appearance, not simply request solos, she demanded credit. Every time John resisted, resentment increased. Michelle Phillips fought too. She was youthful, gorgeous, and now one of the most famous 1960s women. But while John brought her in, he was unprepared for the band. Fame gave her freedom. Michelle voiced her opinions, pushing against Jay's orders, leaning into the spotlight. John is noted for being possessive, obsessed envy beyond Michelle's independence, but also over men around her. This tension wasn't permanent at home. Spilled into the studio. Disagreements became routine and recording meetings became nasty. Denny Doherty, between everything, typically found himself most uneasy position. He liked John's songs, shared Cass's voice, love obvious chemistry with Michelle, but personal relationships formed nearly impossible for him to stand on neutral ground. Denny spoke softly, easygoing by nature, but in this he couldn't avoid the band jealousy and betrayal storm. The recording procedure should have become their artistic refuge battlefield. Users started taping respective pieces separately to avoid simultaneously in the studio. Instead of singing together their voices in recordings isolation. When it felt like family together, making magic became a thing. Cold mechanical process held only by Jay's perfectionism. Sometimes music carried itself. Their animosity. Song I Saw Her, another 1966 release, was born directly from betrayal. A song with its peppy song and cheery vibe, passive-aggressive dig, visibly masking Jay's rage. Fans sang without realizing they were echoing Jay's wrath inside. While Cass grew, increasingly frustrated. Voice was her spirit of their sound. Yet, John was continuously sidelined. Cass could simply use Michelle portions of carried. Later interviews, Cass admitted to feeling dismissed regularly, as if John considered her less marketable despite her talent. So she fought. Group membership is difficult and rejection hurts. She remained faithful but resentful. It showed in sessions. Time passed and tempers heated. The not only creative differences personal. John wanted things to sound precise, but others often favored a more relaxed look. This collision slowed them. Projects were delayed, studio time squandered, they missed chances fingers. What should have been stabilized to more success turned stop-and-go battle where each new recording was a battle. By the late 1960s, cracks weren't simply no more whispering. They'd become visible cracks. The people saw a perfectly harmonizing group, but their co-workers knew truth. Missed recordings, canceled appearances, unending their fights were commonplace. Every victory was diminished by renewed resentment. And shortly, the battles would pour from the studio to every aspect of their existence, endangering the band's future, but also former relationships kept them together. Once cracked, turned into battles, the music alone no longer sustains mamas and papas alive. The personal conflicts. For all its glitz, 1960s mamas and papas carried fame-related burdens in the race. Their voices merged like stage magic, but offstage each one was fighting demons that would gently erode the trust grouping together. Cass Elliot, beloved Mama Cass, faced one of the hardest fights. Voice was hers undeniable, but the world rarely forgot her size. An industry weight made Cass image-obsessed a target for nasty jokes constant watch. Growing up, she battling for respect, learning early because she needed double the talent strong enough to quiet criticism. Even so, she addressed sold-out audiences. Pressure to follow Hollywood's restrictive beauty standards persisted her. The teasing from John Phillips, press whispers, and unspoken comparable to Michelle's model form weighed her as much as any physical strain. Toll wasn't simply external. Cass struggled inside. Poor self-confidence. After a solo show she hoped Las Vegas would establish her career outside the group, was devastated by unfavorable reviews depicted her as awkward and out of place be herself. The backlash hurt her. Half confidence. She slipped in. Depression, withdrawal the spotlight and doubting her worth, though admirers still loved her voice. Her friendliness and laughter made her beloved. But underneath that dazzling persona was a woman doubting herself was enough. While Cass fought self-esteem and mental health, John Phillips deteriorated. Control once drove him, creative vision became paranoia, mood swings, and drug use. These drugs and alcohol became habits chip away at his songwriting sharpness and stability in leadership. The 1970s saw his addiction was revealed. Insiders called him intelligent, but increasingly unexpected, swinging from kind to vicious in an instant single night. Deeper injury ensued with time. Early 1990s years of living hard had wrecked Jay's body. He desperately needs a liver transplant. The procedure rescued him in 1992, yet the years remained. Suspicion and distrust had taken hold root. His later insiders' years referred to his eccentric behavior, conduct, lash-outs, and how illicit chemicals continued to haunt him after transplant. For he once wanted excellence in control. Loss was evident in every note. Terrible, leaving scars everyone he worked with. Denny easygoing tenor Doherty's voice carried some of their most famous tracks, lived quietly with his troubles. His health declined in the decades after the band's peak. And by later in life, he had major medical issues, including surgery, kidney failure, and frightening aortic reality aneurysm. Once carefree singer who appeared to float through the group, a drama was in and out. Hospitals, his body paying 4 years of worry, hardship, and old regrets burden. Michelle, meanwhile, Phillips had a wound. Different type. Being married to John means living with his genius and his erratic. Behind the glamour Michelle pictures, magazine covers often caught between admiration and in dread. John's temper could flare without warning, shaking her. Uncertain. She admitted it afterward. Emotional toll of managing his moods, the envy, the control, and persistent mistrust. Had fame given her independence, but chains her to a guy who could be both her partner and tormentor. Fear may happen if she crossed him too far was genuine and lasted. Dissolution of marriage. Together, battles eroded the band's foundation. John and Cass's insecurities, Denny's worsening health, addiction, trauma definitely influenced Michelle. Their songs. Trust they once shared gradual erosion, replaced by caution, distance, and a notion that the link made their harmonies ache was gone, sturdy enough to move them. The public's dream was in truth a broken bunch attempting to stay together while personal issues drove them apart. In the middle of this turmoil that adds tension, tangled affairs and love triangles, threatening to tear apart ways music could never fix. Affairs, love triangles. If Music Off Mamas and Papas was about their personal life, were harmonious. Exact opposite. Behind the polished voices and happy photos, the group was mired in chaos, and broken heart would poison them. Cooperation to haunt them decades. Most explosive scandal was Michelle Phillips' Denny affair. Doherty. Michelle was still married to John, who was already became in charge band architect. For outsiders, Michelle and John looked alike. Beautiful couple at center all. Beautiful, young, prosperous. In that marriage, Michelle was restless, and Denny's charisma showed impossible to resist. Their secret kind of connection burnt such intensity that could never be hidden for long. Finally, John learned. It sparked fury and envy that shook everyone. For Cass Elliot, this was awful on 2 levels. She was madly in love with Denny. Unrequited love. Cass's love lasted. She loved him so strongly, she even proposed to him. Denny, but rejected her, admitting years subsequently he didn't feel it same way. The rejection devastated Cass, who had suffered for years, being marginalized by John's choices. Denny picking Michelle instead of her deepened her grief. And the bitter irony, she had to sing love songs with them, mixing her voice with theirs, bearing unrequited love. John was no saint. While angered by Michelle's infidelity, he had several affairs on. His hypocrisy caused it even more harmful. Michelle was supposed to be loyal, yet he freely indulged Igeen impulse. Meanwhile, his paranoia and jealousy were constant. Losing control of Michelle and the band got stronger. The double standard was obvious and fueled increasing hostility between him plus everyone else. Michelle persisted with Denny either. Later, she became connected to Bird's Gene Clark, another tight-knit figure the California rock scene. That event added fueling the flames, expanding split with John and deepening fractures in group. For John, each unexpected betrayal hurt. Instead than fixing things, he seeped his hatred into music. One of Jay's cruelest, songwriting was his tool. Used to lyrics as weapons, privatizing betrayals into shame. I Saw Her Again was most obvious. A popular track that hid his rage toward Michelle's Denny affair. Undercover catchy tune. Fans excitedly sang. oblivious that John was lashing out embedded his anger in the very music making them famous. For band members, recording songs reliving agony, in every note continual reminder of their privacy lives were now history. Michelle paid at the height of the chaos the greatest cost of her affairs dramatically possible. She was expelled from the gang briefly. John replaced her with singer Jill Gibson, songwriter, and producer's girlfriend Lou Adler. Gibson had skill, but wasn't Michelle. Fans right away saw the change, and backlash was fast. A few months later, Michelle returned, but message was clear. Her place in the band was never secure, and never would her treachery shadow fade to truly gone. For Cass, love triangle left scars beyond professional annoyances. Her grief over Denny's rejection magnified by her terrible reality must stand with him and Michelle nightly, pretending nothing was wrong. Not only was it painful, was lonely. While others were, Cass is in chaotic relationships that remained outside. Her emotions dismissed, and her group role reduced to voice-alone romance. Her joking and laughter hid the anguish, but her loved ones knew she carried the refusal until end. Each entanglement poisoned the band's foundation. Trust collapsed and allegiance changed. Rehearsals often felt like battlegrounds. Avoid focusing on musicians held grudges, heartache, and betrayal into every session. A band founded on shared dreams, love, and friendship become a mess of jealousy, resentment. As issues mounted, the consequences followed, not but to broken relationships, also to future controversies. Worst scandals off-tier careers. Most harmful controversies, diff affairs and jealousy shattered internal moms, and Papa's later controversies years almost ruined individuals. Reminded them they weren't just small disputes or studio clashes. They shocking and sad scandals. They overshadowed the music and forever changed the group's legacy. The heart of many darkest. John Phillips told stories at the backing songwriter image, and he was ambitious. That behavior toward Michelle was volatile and sometimes outright violence. Michelle mentioned the fear she had in marriage, recalling physical and emotional abusive treatment that tormented her. Their split. To the world, she was the stunning California gold. But behind closed doors, she navigated romance that seemed risky and stuffy. Stories depicted John was a destructive person. That harshness left marks. Yet the most he revealed controversial information. Daughter Mackenzie Phillips, decades later. She described in her memoir alleged long-term substance use inappropriate relationship with her father since she was a young teenager. The claims shocked, depicting manipulation, addiction, and extreme treachery greater than supporters could hope imagined. The book changed John, controversial figure, into one of the worst rock names ever. Formany claims tarnished forever his legacy, making it impossible to separate music from disturbing truth about him at home. Even Cass Elliot, whose kindness and brilliance voice made her adored, didn't, free of bad rumors. Though never proven, rumors her substance misuse persisted her career. For an already battling woman, misconceptions and insults about her weight, rumors added another layer. Judgment. Cass struggled for her voice, not her appearance. Addiction gossip, though shadowed her art and departed, fighting not only public perception but misunderstandings. Personal cost. The criticism went beyond the tabloids. Major media coverage often focused on scandals, viewing the group via them. The revelations darkened, tougher for spectators to recall the purity of California songs Dreaming or Monday. Every interview, it seemed every retrospective, circled back to Jay's abuse, Mackenzie's assertions, or Cass's problems. The narrative changed from a story of a misharmony group to a warning celebrity, addiction, and abuse story power. Michelle never mellowed at her remarks on John's behavior. Later, she stated terrible relief he was gone. Speaking, he told her his pain directly. Others. A long time, her candor startled admirers who idolized the group. Honesty for Michelle became the only explanation. She endured. She wasn't prepared to hide behind nostalgia. Preserve John's honor. She spoke from the viewpoint of someone who had survived his rule, betrayal, and his abuse. Cass's tale also spread. Obscured by one of the worst falsehoods. Rock historians say she died by choked on ham sandwich. The rumors spread swiftly after her unexpected death in 1974, making tragedy ugly punchline. That tale persisted for decades. To her name, concealing truth. It not until her daughter and close friends repeatedly disproved it, people realized how harmful a myth. Cass died of heart failure, not sandwich-related. The thoughtless gossip showed how little she was respected after death. These controversies added up to change how people remember the mothers and fathers. The music persisted, timeless. Yet the group's image, Asker-free dreamers, ended forever. The sinner was Michelle, last survivor, bearing the weight of memories, and Coragetto finally reveal her heartbreak discoveries about inner life band was really like. Michelle's devastating news. By 1968, the splits in Mamas the Papas ultimately yielded. The band officially split, leaving just a few albums, but many drama. The public thought it was sudden. For Michelle, it was natural, that result of years of infidelity, jealousy, and fatigue. The dream ended, though record contracts halted them shortly in 1971 for One Last People Like Us album. That reconnection was not happy. In actuality, it was responsibility rather than passion. Everyone knew about the project. When the music stopped, Michelle had to create her life without the band. Acting gave her a niche, second career that stunned others only knew her as a singer. She appeared in films and television, showing she wasn't only Jay's youthful wife or a lovely face harmony group. She was talented that could stand alone. She also published solo music, yet nothing reached the Soaring Heights band's success. The narrative of John went opposite way. His attempt solo career flopped. Personal scandals and addictions shaped his final years. By the when he died at 65 in 2001, his reputation was intertwined two ways: appreciation for his songwriting, disgust at the harsher facts become apparent. Denny always seemed the most relaxed. That group discreetly left the spotlight. He settled in Canada, away from Hollywood insanity, but distance couldn't remove it. Toll of those years. His health decreased, and he died at the age 66, leaving Michelle last. Original members still alive. Recently, Michelle has become the band historian. Through Rolling Stone interviews, even casual podcast appearances, she has spoken on YouTube honestly about living through the storm. She has described the betrayal, anguish, maltreatment, but also Magikoff music and its impact population millions. She also spoke frankly about healing and finding tranquility in old age, and about reconciling messy reality with beauty of their art. She realizes scandals will always exist, the band's tale, but she also maintains that music's legacy is larger than chaos. And now Michelle is determined to ensure that tale told her way. Has been she outspoken about biopic ideas, committing to its production. The Mamas and Papas were never faultless. People's private lives betrayed, addicted, and heartbreak. However, standing together, saying something extraordinary happened. As Michelle often says, they were flawed and made mistakes. Ideal music, above all, what endures. Choose a band member that you believe caused more disruption in the group. Submit responses here, comment below. If you liked, watch this video and click the upcoming video.